Alright, it is time to finish this matching set. If you didn't see the last video, I made a pleated skirt and I made it out of this beautiful blue, green, purple Pendleton fabric, and I have quite a lot left, so I'm making a top to go with the skirt. So truthfully, I've actually made it already, and I have thoughts. I have thoughts on how this whole thing went down. For the most part, I'm really pleased, but I will just tell you that it was a journey. Yeah, it was not easy. I really took it upon myself this year to get better at making my own patterns, or at least knowing how to adjust a pattern to suit me better. So I've tried to make a bustier type of garment before, and it's just never right with a commercial pattern. They don't get my proportions right, and I didn't know previously how to adjust the pattern to make it suit me better. So I really wanted to kind of start from the beginning and make it for me. I was mostly successful in doing this. I think I know already what I can do to change it for the future projects, because I definitely have a few more in mind that I want to make. And but this was a great way to get started. I'm happy with the result, and I'm gonna walk you through what I did. The first thing I did was get my mannequin out, and I made a very rough sketch using some 1/4-inch painter's tape. Then I'm just tracing over the top of the painter's tape with some scrap fabric I had. This is just to get a rough outline of the shapes, and then I'm going to take it over to my paper and make it nice. Having my mannequin has been a great addition to my sewing this whole year, but you know, we're close in measurements, but we're not close in proportions, especially when it comes to the bust area. So she was great to get started with, but it really still took quite a few adjustments and rounds of adjustments to get somewhere even close to a fitting garment. I don't know why, but I always find the transferring of the pattern onto the paper really satisfying, just seeing the lines sharpen and get really neat. In my last video, I did it a different way with the pieces on top of the paper, and I used a roulette. But this time I'm doing it underneath. Since it is transparent, you can just trace directly on top of it. Don't forget to add your seam allowance to this. Then I'm just cutting them out, and it's ready for a mock-up. I probably made about 10 mock-ups or something like that. It was so many. I will spare you most of that, because really what I'm doing is every time I make a mock-up, I make the adjustments on the mock-up, I trace them on the mock-up from the pins, and then I cut it out along those lines and along the seams I didn't mark anything on, and I used those pieces to adjust my paper pattern. Alright, so here's the remainder of my fabric, which I think I have plenty of. I could probably make another thing. I'm trying to think of what to do on the inside. I have this black cupro, and it's like very silky, very much a lining. Alternatively, I have this silk mesh. It is actually silk, and it's like a very fine net. It's really sturdy. It doesn't provide structure though. So I don't know. Part of me is like, you know, Cupro is great, but it's also a very like warm fabric to me. Like it makes me feel hot when I touch it. And then this is 100% wool, so it's like two kind of warm fabrics right on top of each other. I don't know that it wouldn't be breathable per se, but this would be like obviously so much more breathable if I had a net and then this on top. I think there's something kind of really cool about on the inside being able to see like the boning and the structure that goes into it. So I think I'm gonna just give it a go. This is a really strong wool, woven wool, like really tightly woven. It doesn't fray hardly at all, as I said before. So I think like I'm gonna give it a try. There's not a ton of explanation to give other than what I already have. I'm really just transferring my pattern pieces to the main fabric. I'm trying to take a little bit of care on where the lines are hitting from piece to piece, but it's not going to be perfect, so I'm okay with that. Alright, I said it would be close, but not perfect. I could have moved this a little bit and then this line would have been more in line with the rest of them, but these aren't exactly perfect anyway, and that would have meant being less efficient with my fabric, and I didn't want to waste the fabric. So this is the back panel where like whatever my closure is going to be is, so I don't really think it matters that much. And then these line up like 100% perfectly anyway. They'll be a little bit off, so it's fine. So here is what I'm thinking. These line up. Thinking these will go facing each other, the seams. I may need to cut them down. let's imagine that they face each other. I think this is not quite sturdy enough for its own to case the boning in. So I'm going to take some bias tape. Once I've secured these to each other, probably just like baste them by hand or whatever. And then I'm going to take bias tape that I am leaving folded. It's too wide to unfold it and put it downward. I'm gonna leave it folded and put it on the seam and then sew on either side. And then really I think the boning is gonna fit in the folded over bias tape rather than between the main fabric and the lining. I think that would be better. It would put less strain on this mesh and on the seams themselves, maybe? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I think this middle one, maybe I will do 2 boning channels, so I will open it up in that case. And sew on the edges and also down the middle. Alright, I have the boning channels in. I just used synthetic whalebone and I really like it. I think it gives it a much more invisible look the way that I did it with the bias tape. I mean, you can see the stitching a little bit when it's on the lighter sections, but for the most part I feel like you can't really see it, and then you don't get that bulge as much when as I do when I do like the bag lining or something. But then it's cool because you flip it over and you see the inside and it's like, bam, there it is. There's all the structure and all the work that went into it. But that's just the look I'm going for in this case. I mean, sometimes it's part of the look to make this visible from the outside. And that's totally cool too. Okay, let's talk about the closure. I wanted to do a hook and eye tape. I have this kind of like sturdy one, and what I've done is I've stitched it like super close to the edge so that my needle wouldn't go through any of the metal bits. So currently it, when worn, looks like this. So from the outside, I've got it sewn right sides together. Well, I'm not really sure what you would call the right side, but I've got it sewn on the edge on the right side of the main fabric, and then when it gets flipped over, it looks like that. And then same thing for this one. But I don't really like seeing this in the back. And I have a little extra space in here for this reason. So what now I'm going to do is, if I can do this with one hand, I'm going to flip the whole thing so that only the little tiny hooks poke out, something like that. And I'll do that on the other side as well. And I might be able to fit another bone in here. If not, I'll just make a new one with more bias tape just somewhere on the inside near here. I didn't do that yet because I wanted to see where things aligned. And then this doesn't really extend far enough, but I think it might once this gets flipped over. I don't know, I'll have to see. If not, I'll just tack it down just on its own. Cool. All right, here's a little bit easier way to show you. So I've pinned it now. I'm going to sew kind of exactly where I sewed the first time, but this time because I have it folded and pinned, it's going to catch the folded part on the other side, and hopefully that'll work. I think there will be this little gap here, so I might still maybe I'll hand stitch it because I don't see how I could possibly go over this metal part with my needle. So this is what we're looking at right now. I have trimmed it a little bit more evenly around the edge. I've only sewn it one time because now what I'm going to do, so I still have like so much of this stuff, I might need to trim this a tiny bit shorter, but this is going to hold my underwire. You don't need to do that. If you leave enough seam allowance, you can just sew it down and let the underwire go in the channel that you make with the seam allowance. I obviously I want to use this up, but I also just feel a bit, it's a bit tidier in my opinion, or at least it wasn't on the mock-up. So I'm gonna just go ahead and cover the seams. I think I'm gonna trim the padding down a bit further because it is really bulky, and then I'm going to have this go all the way around, leaving the ends open, and then I'm gonna slide in the underwire, try this on, and see if I finally did this right. I alluded to this at the beginning of the video, but I'm mostly happy with it. I don't love everything about it. I still just didn't get the fit right. I still didn't get the cups like quite big enough. That's a little bit of a bummer because I probably made like 10 mock-ups at least. So I'll just have to keep working on it, and that's my goal for next year. And I thank you for watching, and I hope you liked it.